Now let's say if I wanted to preview this in rendering, which is very important, I'm going to go ahead and click this button. I can click that button, it will render. And right now this isn't very exciting. I know it's not Avatar, but it's pretty close. I'm just joking. And done and done. So we have our shadows, we have our reflections and stuff like this. This is a nice looking gloss look on here with that red light that we put on there earlier. Let's say if I move this, it's going to go out of the render tab, which is here. I still have that render there. So I have back to the preview tab. Maybe I don't want to render the whole thing. Maybe I want to render a part. So what I did was I clicked this selection, render selection, and then I just go ahead and select the part I want to render. It sends me over to this render tab and it renders. I don't have to click this tab back here. I can be on the render tab, but if I start moving this right here, it's going to go right back to the preview tab. So right now, so far, we see this timeline here, but where are the points of animation? You don't see that. All we see here is this edit keyframes button. Add a keyframe, delete a keyframe, or go to the next keyframe. So if I click this, it's jumping between these invisible keyframes. Okay, so the way we see those keyframes, we actually click this button here. We saw this before when I changed the interface. So right now you have all the character parts. You have everything in the scene. You have the ground. Every single thing can be animated. And so I have a keyframe here and here on all of these parts here. So it only goes from one keyframe to the next. And you can see that by the keyframe being dark and green. If I go to frame 30 and I make a move on his head, so let's say if I do some sort of rotation on his head or something like that, you notice there's a keyframe here. And if I click down into it, you'll see the rest of the keyframes on all sorts of elements of the head. So you got to be careful with this because you can move something the wrong way in the middle of two keyframes. Let's see if I do something like this. And it'll just drive everything wild. I mean, I did mess up the arm, but I didn't really mess it up that bad. I mean, look at this guy. He's losing his mind. I mean, that's just plain retarded. Look at that. Arm all bent out of shape. I screwed it up, but not that bad. And that's my point. This is why you have to understand, if you really want to get into animation with Poser, you have to understand this keyframe editor, which we're only touching the surface of this. Then you have to understand the parameters and the properties. Now another cool thing about Poser, I'm going to zero this guy out. Another cool thing you want to remember about Poser, I'm going to bring this to level 1, is that there's a cool way to actually delete everything. Now, this is what happens. Let's say if I have this animation, I don't want any of this animation anymore, and I want to start all over. I want it back to 0. But even if I go to this figure and I go to 0 out, all this other animation still exists, and I don't want any of that. So there's a couple of ways you could do it. A lot of people go right here, and they can select all of these keyframes. I'm scrolling all the way down. They can select all the keyframes. I drag it all the way up to the second keyframe, and I hit delete. That's one way to do it. So if I go here and I scroll across, I don't see anything. It's done. I got rid of all that animation. Okay, so I control Command Z, Control Z if you're on the PC. And I got it back, so I can show you another way to do this. It's much easier than opening up this keyframe editor. So I'm going to close the keyframe editor, and as you can see, I have all that animation. So now what I want to be able to do is get rid of all that animation. I just want what's on the front on frame number 1. So I'm going to select all the frames, and I'm going to hit 1 here, and I'm going to hit enter. Now, basically, I have just one frame. Now, if I go to my figure and I zero that out, I have one frame. I can go ahead and click this and put 60 in there, and I'm back to having a cleared out animation. Okay, so we've gone over this, and now one of the most important tabs Poser has is this library here. This is where all the magic is going to be. So I can change this character out. It could be in the middle of animation. Let me give you guys an example really quick. He's in the middle of animation. Okay. So he's already animated. And I like animating with this because it's simple. I don't have to worry about too many things, clothes and all that sort of stuff. It's very simple. He's animated, but I want to change him. So I go here, and I can change to anything. I can change to animal. Allison. Let's change it to a girl. So I'll go ahead and select this. I'm going to double click it. If I double click it though, what will happen is it's going to load this. But just watch. It's going to load it, but it loaded it on top of the character that I have here. That's not really what I intended. I actually wanted it to take place of the character, so I'm going to go ahead and delete, Command Z that. And I'm going to go ahead and click this one. Now it's going to replace it, and I can keep all the proportions the same. It's going to stretch out that character to match the proportions of the current character. Or I could have had the current character match the proportions of the character that's being imported. So now that I did that, now look, this character is now... You guys don't get all the hots and stuff, okay? It's just 3D. This character is now animated in the way that the first character was. So what you will find a lot of times is that a lot of people will animate the simplified version of the character. Then they will import the character that they want when they're doing animation, especially for fight scenes and stuff like that. Unless, and you would have dummy props and stuff like that, like swords and stuff, to be able to compensate for distance when it comes to animating fight scenes and stuff. So I can do the same thing with poses. Right? I can go select the pose from here, from anywhere. It doesn't really matter. I'm sorry, these are actions. You just go down a list, just try all sorts of stuff. Standing, I mean, I can go to people. Let me drag that here. I could drag it there. It'll go, and then I can go to my... So you see what happened. It gave the character the pose, but it also kept the previous animation. I can go to my final scene and say, okay, after that, I'm not even moving the character. I'm going to go ahead and drag this one on there. So now look what I have. I have here, hey, cab! I need a cab! Or the new skeleton dance. We call this the mantis. Not just joking. So come over here, and then now he's all of a sudden. Parlez-vous? Hello. All right. So you can pretty much do anything you want as far as these characters go because you have complete freedom. You can physically grab it, grab it and start manipulating it. You can go to the parameters and start manipulating it on a more exact scale, or you can go find a pose and just add the pose to it. And then there's seemingly thousands of poses, and if you don't find it here, you can go to the online store and buy some stuff or get some free stuff. You have the same thing here. I'm not going to go through all of them and show you, but it's pretty much the same concept. You have the hair, you have hands, you have props, things. You can also import a lot of these things. Go through all of these menus and check them out, double click them and put them onto your character. The other menu we're going to look at is one of the most important menus actually. It's this hierarchy menu, and it shows you everything in the scene, but it allows you to select everything in the scene. So if I had 100 of these characters, I would name them differently. One would be Andy 2. So let me go ahead and import someone not Nakey. Alright, here we go. I'm going to double click him, and again, we know what double clicking means. It's going to bring that character in on top of the origin of this character because they're both centered. That's why. Alright, so okay, so now he's on top. Alright. Now I'm gonna try to select this guy. Alright, I'm trying to select him. There's like 3 of these guys here. I'm selecting one, and then I gotta try to find this one and then select him. That actually came out pretty good. I'm gonna select him. Okay, that came out okay. Alright. That actually worked pretty good. Now let's say I couldn't select those guys. I can go here in the hierarchy. I'm just gonna scroll all these up, and now I have all these figures: figure 1, figure 2, and Andy. I can turn off figure 2, figure 1, and I just have Andy. This makes things so much easier to select. I don't even have to turn him off. I just scroll down, click his body, and then from there I have his parameters here, and I can translate him on the X. Voila! And that's how we do it. And I'll obviously do the same thing for these guys. Like I said, I can select them. And this is what I want you to realize, is that when you select a character, different parts are selected, that's true. But what's also selected is this circle around here. If I click on that circle with the translate tool, pressing T, with the translate tool, and hold it down, I can move the entire character. Okay? It's just that sometimes the scenes become so crowded that you cannot select a particular character, and it's just selecting everything else. And it becomes an issue. Right now, let's talk about limits. It's the final thing we're going to talk about. So limits means when I drag this guy's arm, look at this. This guy is really jacked up. I mean, I screwed him up. This is how I roll. You mess with me, I twist you into a knot. But they have a secret weapon. They have the weapon of limits. So if I go to figure and I hit use limits, it'll fix their spinal column. It'll fix everything so it doesn't go all wacky. So now you can be free to move something, and what it'll use is inverse schematics to be able to move it if you go past the limits. It'll only do the limits of that the joint is naturally able to do. Now you don't want this all the time, but a lot of times when you're dealing with the human figures, you want this unless you're really trying to disfigure something. So I think we went through a whole series of different things. Next time we're going to go through the material, face, hair, cloth, and setup tabs. The content tab is just to buy stuff online and all that sort of stuff. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and email me at mesx9000@gmail.com. If you have any questions or concerns about what we're talking about here, go ahead and leave a comment on the Facebook account and check out some of my other videos. Alright, thanks. Talk to you guys later. Bye.